Hello, freshmen. I wanted to give you a quick student example of Article of the Week responses. You'll notice here that this is a student from last year. It was in November, so this is his 8th Article of the Week response, so he's had lots of practice at this point. First of all, just a word or two about the formatting. You will be using MLA formatting. Notice that the whole page is double-spaced all the way through, and he goes a full page and a little bit onto the second page. So you're working toward creating a one-page response for every article that we're reading. In this case, he was asked to look at 2 articles in the same way that you're asked to look at 2 articles for this particular Article of the Week response. So to start with, MLA formatting requires you to do a heading, and you guys are familiar with this heading, but you'll notice that it's his name first, read. My name, and my name's a little bit hard to spell. Make sure you spell it correctly, or just hyphenate B-H. English 9, and then the hour. And then you'll put the date that you wrote the response. And notice that there is no punctuation within this date at all. There's no comma. He could put November NOV period and abbreviate November, but otherwise there's no punctuation at all within the date. He doesn't leave 4 or 5 spaces here between his heading and the title of the response. And then he doesn't leave a bunch of spaces before he begins his response either. The title is centered. It's Article of the Week 8, or whatever Article of the Week we're on. So for you all, we've really done one response. So this would be the Article of the Week 2, and then you would put the author's names that we're responding to, or the title of the article that we're responding to. If you remember this last time, I told you that one of the things that helps your response is to actually pull in a specific quote or a passage that you're looking at in particular. So if you'll notice how he opens, he says, Martin Luther King Jr. stated in Washington, D.C., I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. The way that he introduced this is he stated the author's name, or last name is really what you'd be using, and then he attributed this quote to him. So you never want to just throw a quote in here without this lead in that attributes it back to the author. You'll see that a couple of times in here. It's really nicely done. So he says, that creed is that all men are created equal and deserve equal rights as well as just laws and lives. America and much of the world has come far since that day in 1963, but we are not perfect yet. Blacks and whites now have equal rights, but there are still many problems. This part right here is really Reed's response to this idea of Martin Luther King's dream. And he's saying, we're not quite there yet, but we have progressed, certainly since Martin Luther King gave that speech. Then he introduces the article, the second article, which was by Leonard Pitts. The article, The Meaning of White Privilege, shows one of the biggest of those problems. Police brutality has been a major difficulty and topic recently, but this article made it clear that it is just part of white privilege. Here he's restating sort of the main point or the main idea of the article. So if you want to begin your responses by sort of giving one quick summative statement of the main point of the article, that's an excellent way to start a response. However, you don't want to spend the majority of the article summarizing what the author was saying. Then you wouldn't really ever be responding to it. Notice that he switched quickly into this. The article made 2 extremely interesting points. This is where he's responding to the points that he's made. The first was this, quote, anyone looking to define white privilege would be well advised to ponder the 40 minutes police spent sorting things out with the white man and the 2 seconds it took them to shoot the black boy. And then he puts a citation here showing that it was Leonard Pitts who stated this quote. And then he goes on to respond here. Now, the cop that shot the black boy may have been crazy and there was no race involved. Also, not all cops are racist, but I agree that this is a great injustice. So he is going through and kind of agreeing with some of the points of the article, but also disagreeing with some of the points of the article. So it shows a strong reflection, which is really what I'm looking for in all of your responses. He moves into another point, and so he starts a new paragraph. The second point was that one can act on or benefit from privilege without knowing. Pitts argues that to benefit from misogyny does not make one a misogynist. This is extremely true, and everyone has most likely had this happen to them at some point, whether they have realized it or not. So again, he brings up the specific point that's being made by Pitts, and then he moves into how he feels about the point, his response to that point. Then he goes into overall the article is not perfect. It makes it clear that much has changed since 1963, but we still have work to do. Equal rights for all, but justice for most is not this country's motto. King stated, "Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood." We are not there yet, but we can make it. And that's his final conclusion, kind of tying both of these pieces back together. He has a couple of quotes from Martin Luther King and a couple of quotes and points from the Leonard Pitts article, and he's weaving them in together. The main thing is that in your response, you want to show a reflection and a deep thinking about the article and the points that are being made.